Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Jordan and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of February 2022. First off, to preface this, I'm sorry if the lighting looks weird. I'm sitting in front of a window and the sun keeps going behind clouds and then reappearing, so the light might fluctuate. I apologize, as it's kind of doing right now. Also, if you can hear the laundry going in the background, I apologize for that. I have no other time to do laundry or film, so we're just gonna have to work with it. Other than that, let's just get straight into my stats for the month. So in the month of February, I read 2,288 pages, which breaks down to a total of 82 pages per day, which isn't the greatest, but I'm pretty happy with it, seeing as I worked every day in February except for the weekends. So I'm pretty proud of that number. I read 4 physical books and 1 ebook. 2 of those being books I hauled in 2022 and 3 being books that I owned prior to the year. My genre stats were not varied at all. All I read this month was fantasy, 5 fantasy. It breaks down a little bit more into like urban fantasy, high fantasy, and my ratings break down to 1 3-star, 1 4-star, 1 4.5 star, and 2 5 stars, which is an average of 4.3 stars. So overall, I'm pretty happy with my reading in February. I didn't get as much read as I might have liked, but it was mostly great books I really enjoyed. 2 5 stars is really good, and it's my first 2 5 stars of the year, so yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. The first book I read in the month of February was God's Grave by Jay Kristoff, which is the sequel to Nevernight. In Nevernight, we follow our main character Mia, who is training to become an assassin in, I believe, the Red Church, which is a group of the most elite assassins, and her goal really is to enact revenge on the 3 men who were responsible for her father's murder. So she's in this school, trained to become an assassin, learning how to kill people so she can kill her father's murderers. I didn't enjoy the sequel as much as I liked the first book. A lot of the elements in the first book that I really loved weren't present in this one, for understandable reasons that I cannot say because spoilers. I still enjoyed this one, just not as much. This one came out at a 4.5 stars. Several of the plot points in this one went in way different directions than I expected. The overall plot of this wasn't something I expected at all. It was very, very different from the first novel. I feel like there were some similar themes as there were in Nevernight. That whole just Mia finding out who she truly is, all of that. I don't want to say too much again because major spoilers, but I really am enjoying this series a lot. Nevernight was one of my favorite books of 2021, and I'm super excited to get to the final book in this trilogy, especially because of the revelation at the end of this novel that I might have seen coming, but I just want to know how that plays out. And there were also a few plot points that were vaguely mentioned in this one that I really hope come up in the next one because I would love to know more. The next book I read in the month of February was Where the Drowned Girls Go by Seanan McGuire. This is the 7th book in the Wayward Children series, I believe. One second, the lighting is changing. Again, I apologize for that, but there's not much I can do. This was my first 5-star book of the year. I loved it, as I've loved all of the other Wayward Children series books. I don't think I really need to give you a plot summary on this because I've been talking about it a lot lately, and I'm sure you know what the Wayward Children series is about. It's a portal fantasy series where the kids go into these doors, find a place where they belong, where they can find themselves, or they're back in the real world at Miss Eleanor's home for wayward children. And this one is set in the modern world. This follows a character, Cora, who I believe we met in Beneath the Sugar Sky. In this one we learn more about the other schools, or school, as opposed to Miss Eleanor's home specifically, and this book is just a lot darker than any of the other novels in the series. I loved it so much because I just feel like we got to know a lot more about the world in this one, a lot more about the various portal worlds too. I always enjoy getting little snippets, even if it's just a one-liner, about any of the characters' Portal Worlds. There were a lot of new side characters in this one that I'm very intrigued to potentially see more from in the future, especially seeing as where this book left off. No spoilers, obviously. This one was really good. It's definitely a contender for one of my favorites in the series, and I really don't want to wait a year for the next book, but I'm gonna have to, and I'm gonna enjoy it. I know I will. The next book I read in February was my only ebook of the month, and that was The Bone Chips by R.J. Barker. I read this one for Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy's Backlist Book Club, and it was fine. That's all I really have to say about this. It was mediocre. I gave it a 3-star rating. I felt like it had a lot of potential, but it just didn't pan out. Maybe the sequel will go a little bit better. Going into this, what I knew about it was that in this world, these ships are built out of the bones of these dragons, but these dragons haven't been seen for years and years and years, and then suddenly one day one is spotted, and obviously whoever kills that one, you're gonna have an advantage, whether that be in the next war or just by having a brand new ship that is not falling apart, that is made out of the bones of these dragons. And so our cast of characters is sent to deal with that. This book was very boring to me, honestly. There were a lot of descriptions that I don't think were necessary, and there were some descriptions that I think could have been helpful that weren't present, particularly in the character development section. This book was very heavy on the world building, I would say, and that part was very interesting to me. I loved all of the characters, all the creatures. I loved all the creatures rather than the characters. Like the Golem was my absolute favorite character, and I just wanted to know more. There wasn't enough information for me, and I'm a very character-based reader. I love characters. That is what makes or breaks a story for me most of the time, and I just feel like there weren't any of the deck childer that I really cared about. I would be intrigued to know more, especially about the main two, Mies, Maes, and Joran. Some of the minor characters were a little bit more intriguing to me. I, for the life of me, cannot remember their names at this moment, but I would be way more intrigued to know more about them, and even the main characters themselves, because there was no development there, no relationship building. And then there were several plot points that seemed out of the blue thrown in, very rushed, especially at the end of the novel. I felt like the resolution was a bit quick. And then sometimes there were just these plot points that were brought up, resolved a few lines or pages later, and then never mentioned again, which was kind of weird. I don't know that I'll be continuing. I kind of want to at this moment, just because I feel like the setup in this novel had a lot of potential. I am not sure what exactly the plot for the sequel could be. Again, I am intrigued enough, I think, to continue, so we'll see how that goes in March, hopefully. The fourth book I read in February was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, the first book in the Crescent City series, and I'm sure you know what this book is about at this point. The sequel just came out, so it is super hyped right now. This was my first time reading it, and I absolutely adored it. As I said, I'm sure you know what this book is about at this point, but I don't want to give too much away. I feel like the synopsis can give a little bit more than is necessary away, so I don't want to say too much, but basically it's set in this urban world. It's a fantasy set in this urban world that's not our world, but it's very city-based. It's got all kinds of creatures, anything you could think of. We've got angels, demons, werewolves, fae, sprites, mermaids, witches, literally anything, all in this one modern city, Crescent City. We follow Bryce, our main character, who is half fae, half human. It's got a huge mystery element, which I love. I really, really enjoy being able to read even a fantasy novel from a character who is my age or close enough to my age, a year or two apart, and I loved Bryce. I loved her so much. There's obviously a bunch of trigger warnings for this book. Sarah J. Maas is very, very good at how she writes trauma and mental health and issues of that nature, but just trigger warnings for like drug abuse, suicide, you would just have to look up all the trigger warnings, because I feel like there's way more than just those few that I mentioned. But as I said, Sarah J. Maas really does know how to write trauma and mental health and grief well and discuss it well. This book broke my heart in several moments. It's the first book that's made me tear up in a long time. I didn't cry, but I definitely did tear up a little bit. It hit home a lot. I absolutely loved it. I know some people say that the first little bit of the book, around like the 200 or 100 to 200 or 300 page mark, can be slow because it's a lot of world building, and I didn't really find it slow. I found it very intriguing, interesting, wanted to know everything about the world. My only little thing was there were a lot of names just thrown at us at the beginning, and I wasn't sure who was who, but I figured it out eventually. And then, I mean, the love interest in this book is a very much Sarah J. Maas love interest, like Reese from ACOTAR, and it's not my vibes, but he was fine. He was a great character. I enjoyed his storyline, but Bryce was my favorite, and even the side characters I absolutely loved, and I want to know more about them, like Rune and Hypaxia, is that her name? Either way, I'm dying to get to the sequel as soon as I possibly can, whenever I can buy that. But yes, this was definitely my favorite book of the month, with Where the Drowned Girls Go being a close second, but this one was just everything to me. It took me a few days to read this, but I read probably like 3/4 of it in one day. I read like 400 or 500 pages of it one day, and I loved every single second of it. So, hoping to get to the sequel as soon as possible. And the final book that I read in the month of February was City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This was a reread. I reread this for the By the Angel Along, hosted by Rebecca Fowle. And I mean, I'm sure you know what The Mortal Instruments is about. I explained City of Bones in my January wrap-up. We're rereading one a month for the foreseeable future to get through the Shadowhunter Chronicle. I'm enjoying my reread. That's what I can say. I don't think the Mortal Instruments series is my favorite, but I am enjoying the nostalgia factor, going back to these books, just taking it all in again, seeing these characters. It is definitely a product of its time. You can definitely tell it's that older classic YA. I'm enjoying it. There were some things that happened in this book that I thought happened later in the series, but I was surprised to find it was in this one. I would say this is very much a middle book because the first 3 books were meant to be a trilogy and then she added the later 3 on. But I would say this is very much a middle book, like middle book syndrome. I really enjoyed seeing Simon's story develop a little bit more. Hated the relationship that is very present in this novel. Hated it so much. I'm super excited to get to City of Glass next month. This month, it is currently March. So yeah. Alright, so there we have it. Those are all of the 5 books that I read in February. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of them in the comments below, what you thought of them, what books I should maybe prioritize reading the sequels of first. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you with another video soon. Bye!